Greetings, fellow gamers and game dev people. Welcome back to the second video about our journey of creating video games. As you can see, maybe the background changed, and the reason for that is that I moved. So there's been a lot going on lately. The setup will maybe also change later on. So this is not yet fully complete here, and I'm not quite sure about how things move. Maybe I will also move to another room, but we will see about that. So not only for me personally, a lot of things changed, but we also made some progress. First, I want to tell you a bit about the founding part of the journey. So I've bought the domains for the websites for now, even if there's nothing to be seen yet. And since the legal structure is a bit more complex in Germany and has a lot of facets, I'm still looking into the how of actually structuring the company. Basically, there are three options. The first option is founding a GmbH. The second one would be an OHG. These two are both options of founding in Germany, and they differ in how much starting capital you need and also in the liabilities that you have as person. So the last option would be founding outside of Germany. But yeah, these are things for the future. I will tell you more about the options once we decided and also why we decided for these options. So for this video, I want to give you a short insight on the two game projects that we are currently working on and also talk a bit about the tech stuff. So for the two games, we planned to do initially small scoped games and offer options for us to expand once we released, and also got a little feedback, given the fact that actually enough people are interested in it, of course, but we will see about that. The first game project that we have is a 2D roguelike maze game, where you have to navigate through a maze using different cards to defeat your enemies. And the further you get, the more different cards you will get, and the stronger the enemies get as well. Here we are currently working on a small prototype to validate if the game is even fun. And that's an important part. And once we tried that and validated that, we will also talk about this as well and maybe even show you something a bit from the prototype. The second project is more of a mixture of a story-based decision game with RTS-like exploration features. So you have a base and you can launch expeditions into different areas of the world to find more resources. And the focus fully lies on the expedition mechanics, different areas, and the encounters that you have there. This will adapt the expeditions from Anno 1800. I'll put a picture here where you can see how these look. So as you can see, there's a text with different courses of action that will have different outcomes when you choose them, and also have different probabilities of being success or failure depending on the stuff that you have with you on the expedition. Once you then reach your destination, you will have to explore the area by moving around with your crew. So we want to do this a bit more like with a top-down view. And you actually have to control each character from there. This game idea is more validated in the sense that each of the game parts itself is nothing new and only the combination is new. And I think we can combine these good. So here we are in the start of the development as well. The goal here is first to create a minimal implementation and then reach out to each of the parts and expand them separately. So now for the technical stuff. As mentioned in the last video, we are a pretty IT-focused group. So that is why we want to try out different engines to see what suits us better. If you aren't familiar with engines, let me break it down for you a bit. So a game engine is basically a framework that provides different tools for making games. There are certain parts of code which are used in lots of games, such as collision or gravity or 3D model handling or whatever. And instead of every developer for every game having to create such systems, you basically have an engine which does these systems and you can just use them. An engine can therefore optimize these things. And yeah, that's basically the whole point. And that allows developers, of course, to focus more on their own game and their own creations. So now, as you can imagine, there's a whole bunch of engines out there. Some even tailored to very specific games or genres, like the RPG Maker, for example. And while it is true that there are a lot of engines, only 3 of them are really prominent or prominent flexible engines for new developers right now. And those engines are Unity, Unreal Engine, and Godot. So each of these have different aspects and makes them better or worse for certain games. And when deciding on an engine, people are often very emotional. So normally the best advice is to just take whichever you want and get started. I will, however, try to give you a short overview over the engines. So yeah, let's break it down. For a long time, the engine war was only really between Unreal Engine and Unity. And Unreal Engine is a big engine developed by Epic Games. That's the company that created Fortnite. And this engine is well established and also used in a lot of AAA productions. We have a lot of games coming up as well there. Unreal Engine often shines with new graphics, best graphics that there is in the industry, advanced physics, lighting, and is also really good with a realistic 3D and cinematics. The critic, on the other hand, is that with that much power, it's also pretty hard to handle, and the learning curve is more steep than with other engines. So the option for indie developers, therefore, was Unity for a long time, because Unity branded to be more beginner-friendly, with more assets that you can use and to be better documented. And they also set their own accents in the area of cross-platform development, which they started as the first engine, and also being more flexible for 2D games as well than Unreal Engine. However, in the end of 2023, Unity tried to change its pricing model, and that enraged a lot of devs. And yeah, it's not really easy to switch engines. And if an engine changes the pricing model, that can make or ruin the whole game experience or the whole process of developing games as a studio. So after lots of protests, they did change the pricing model again back, but they have lost a lot of trust since then. And this also opens the option for Godot to enter the engine war. Godot is a free and open source alternative to the 2 other engines. It's super lightweight and easy to learn. And differently to Unreal Engine and Unity, it is actually free, completely free. However, it is still a relatively new engine, and therefore it has less features and is also less 3D major than the other 2 engines. So it was only for 2D games at the start. Now you can do 3D games as well, but yeah, probably not as good as with the other things. And also, this engine does not have an in-house encryption of the code. So if you publish your game, everybody can read your code, see your code, which might not be optimal for games, certain games. For example, if you do a competitive online game, because people can then manipulate your code easier. So what about us? Well, for the roguelike, maze roguelike, we will use Godot, since it's a 2D game and the engine is easy to learn and also completely free. Since a later project will be a competitive game where the encryption part is actually important and mandatory, and also the 3D support is not optimal for handling large amounts of objects in Godot, we will give this engine a try and maybe stick with it for certain games. But for the Expedition game, we will use Unreal Engine 5. As said, this engine is well established and has more tools for working with 3D. And for us, the decision between Unreal Engine and Unity was a trust problem that Unity has right now. So since they changed the pricing model just like this, we are not certain that this will not happen again. So we will stick with Unreal Engine, and that is probably the engine that we will use for our 3D games. That's the plan for now, at least. So much for our engine choices and ideas. In the next video, I will show you a bit more about one of the game projects. So if you want to see more, either about the game project or about the journey, feel free to subscribe, and also let me know in the comments which of these projects you want to see covered more in depth next. So yeah, have a nice day, and I'll catch you in the next one.